Hello everyone, welcome to our channel Lingualit Capital. In this lecture we will talk about the English Bible translation. And at first we should know that the Bible first written in Latin and Hebrew. First written in Latin and Hebrew. But they kept on translating into different languages. Okay, so Bible is important because it revolves around religious, political and linguistic development and English history. So many times we have seen the questions from the history of Bible, and they ask that who has done the translation in which year. And if you want to answer that questions easily, then you should learn the history of Bible translation. And we will start from the Venerable Wade's Bible translation of John's Gospel in 735 CE is the beginning point. So until John Wycliffe's translation, the New Testament, only small portions of the Bible had been translated into English. And in 735 CE, the Venerable Wade, on his dying day, completed his translation of John's Gospel. And in 165 years later, King Alfred the Great, so he translated a portion of the Pentateuch. A few others during this period translated the Gospels or the Psalms and little else. And the Norman invasion of 1066 was a fundamental reason. For the next 3 centuries, English was only infrequently used for any written documents. Noblemen wrote in French, the language of the elite, and official church documents were written in Latin. English was for peasants. So after long time, next major milestone is of John Wycliffe's Bible of 1382, and it was the first complete English Bible translation. He was translated from the Vulgate's Bible, that's from Latin. So Wycliffe born between 1322 to 1330, and he earning his doctorate in theology in his 40s, 1372, when he was 40 years old in 1372. And he began to chip away at unbiblical practices and beliefs in the church. He also rejected all church hierarchy, including papal authority. He was fired from his post at Oxford in 1382. Wycliffe believed that each man was directly accountable to God. John Wycliffe was an impetus behind a translation of the New Testament into English that was accomplished in 1382. And the Wycliffe Bible went through 2 editions. First one is 1382 and second 1395, and it was done by Wycliffe's assistant John Purvey. And next we have Gutenberg's Bible. So the Gutenberg Bible, also known as the 42-line Bible, the Mazarin Bible or the B42, was among the earliest major books printed using mass-produced movable metal type in Europe, and it is an edition of the Latin Vulgate printed in 1450 to 1455. Johannes Gutenberg in Mainz in present-day Germany. And then we have William Tyndale, who translated Greek and Hebrew resources. Yeah, Greek and Hebrew resources. His timeline around 1494 to 1536, and he was the first to translate the Bible directly into English from original Greek and Hebrew texts. No new English translation acquired between Wycliffe's and Tyndale's 130 years passed without progress. And he was trained in Greek and Hebrew, and he earned his bachelor's degree from Oxford in 1512, and he completed his master's degree in 1550. Bachelor's in 1512 and master's in 1515 from Oxford. And in 1525 he had completed his first translation of the New Testament, but it would not get printed until 1526. Tyndale didn't know that just a few months before his death, a version of the Bible in English based largely on his own work had already been printed in England with King Henry VIII's blessing. And Tyndale also did substantially work on the Old Testament, but he did not complete the task. It is impossible to overestimate the significance of Tyndale's translation, that the first English New Testament after the age of printing, and it was translated directly from the Greek. And there are other Bible translations, like the Coverdale Bible was translated in 1535. So the Coverdale Bible was the work of Miles Coverdale, Tyndale's assistant, and he did not translate directly from the Greek and Hebrew, but he used Luther's German translation, more than one Latin text, and Tyndale's Old Testament portion, and he did complete the Bible, and thus Coverdale's became the first complete Bible printed in English. And it was Coverdale's translation that Henry VIII had already permitted to be printed when Tyndale uttered his dying words. Next Bible is Matthew's Bible. So in 1537 Matthew's Bible appeared. This Bible was the work of John Rogers, whose pen name was Thomas Matthew, and he combined Coverdale's Old Testament with Tyndale's New Testament. Combined Coverdale's Old Testament with Tyndale's New Testament. But Roger also added about 2000 notes, many of them controversial. With Bible is sometimes called the wife beater's Bible, because the marginal says, if the wife be not obedient and helpful unto her husband, he endeavored to beat the fear of God into her. And next we have the Great Bible. So Matthew's and Coverdale's Bible both had Henry VIII permission to print it in September 1538. The king ordered an English Bible to be placed in every church. For 8 months, for September 1538 to April 1539, England's devotion to the Bible was at an all-time high. His command was followed so enthusiastically that lay people were reading the Bible aloud to their fellow prisoners, it had to be larger than Matthew's because of the king's injunction. It was thus called the Great Bible, not because it of literary quality but because of its enormous size. Even though the Great Bible was edited by Coverdale, it was based on the Matthew's Bible. And next we have the Geneva Bible. So when Edward VI, Henry's son, became king, the Reformation was back on swing, but his reign did not last long. In 1553, Mary Tudor, Edward's sister, ascended the throne, and she reserved Edward's Protestant advances, returning the century of Catholicism, and she began to systematically both born Bible and Protestants. Many Protestant scholars fled from England to Geneva, where the famous Reformed theologian John Calvin was living. And the significance of the Geneva Bible, that the Geneva Bible was first English Bible translation entirely from the Greek and Hebrew, and it was first translation done by a committee and can properly be regarded as the 30 version of India's Geneva Bible had a long and stellar history. During the 45 years reign of Queen Elizabeth, nearly 100 editions of the Geneva Bible were published. And next we have the Bishop's Bible. So it was called the Bishop's Bible because it was produced by bishops, but it was too woolen and too pedestrian in translation. Even Elizabeth never officially recognized this translation. It could not compete with the Geneva, which had appeared 8 years earlier and was a much better translation. So next we have the King James Version, also known as the King James Bible KJB, sometimes as the English version of 1611 or simply the Authorized Version AV. We don't have any need to go in depth, just remember the chronology. Yeah. So the next and last we have the Holland Bible. So the Holman Christian Standard Bible is known as HCSB, is a modern English Bible translation from Holman Bible Publishers. And the New Testament was published in 1999, followed by the full Bible in March 2004. The translation was done by 6 panels of translators, 47 men in all, most of whom were leading biblical scholars in England. So this is all about the history of translation, Bible translation. And as I say first, there is no need to go in depth, just remember the chronology, it's enough. Like when Revel Waite's translation of John's Gospel in 735 CE is the beginning point. And next John Wycliffe's Bible 1382, and after that Gutenberg's Bible, and next we have William Tyndale's New Testament published in 1525 and printed in 1526. And next we have the Coverdale Bible 1535, and after that Matthew's Bible 1537. Next we have the Great Bible 1539, and Geneva Bible, the New Testament 1557, and the whole Bible 1560. And next the Bishop's Bible 1568, and James Bible 1611, and Holman Bible 2004. And one more most important thing we should know, that the New Testament was translated from Greek and the Old Testament from Hebrew and Arabic. So I hope this video is very useful for all of you. And please like, comment and share as much as possible.